Okay, Glasgow has announced as a city that it is happy to step in as Commonwealth Games host in 2026 should no other host city or country be found for the event. Now, Glasgow last hosted the Games in 2014, and it was a great, successful event all those 10 years ago. I watched a lot of the events, and there's some categories in certain sports like track and field athletics and other sports that you don't see at the Olympics and you don't see at the various World Championships that do take place at the Commonwealth Games. So it is a chance to see certain other track and field events that may not take place, for example, at the Olympics or World Championships. So in that regard, the Commonwealth is slightly unique in a certain aspect, but there is a running cost to it. There are operational costs. And this is something that both Birmingham and Gold Coast, as in recent hosts, have found is that operating cost, amongst other issues, has proven to be a problem. Now, famously over here in the UK, the city of Birmingham, which is the largest local authority area in Europe, basically has gone bankrupt. And in part, the Commonwealth Game running costs and preparation costs and infrastructure costs were in part to blame for the council having financial issues. Now, there's the bidding process, that costs money. Then once you get the awarded the games, then you've got the infrastructure costs of building all the arenas or upgrading the arenas, putting the athletes with village in place. Then you've got the promotional costs where you're getting all the merchandise ready, which you may not sell all of it, so you've got those kind of production costs. So even though the games itself may make money with ticket sales and then the add-on of people being in your city or in your country, spending their money as tourists and as sports fans, it may not outweigh all those run-up costs and then the operating costs while the events are going on. And Birmingham and Gold Coast, the last two hosts, found out that it was kind of an expensive venture for a 2-week period of time. They were great. Well, Gold Coast was a mixed bag when it came to the Commonwealth, but Birmingham did a very, very good job, but it just cost the city too much money. Now Glasgow have put their hand up and said, we're volunteering to host the 2026 Commonwealths if no other host can be found, but if we are to host the Commonwealth Games, the number of core sporting events, so that's the different sports and their categories, has to be reduced from 13 core sports to 10. So they want to reduce the amount of athletes and events that are taking place during the Games. And they also said they would aim to reuse as many of the facilities that were used in 2014. Now, there's going to have to be some kind of athletes' village set aside for the athletes. They can't just rely on hotel and B&B space in the city and surrounding area of Glasgow, because that could prove problematic with major sporting event, international sporting event, people from all around the world, sports fans wanting to go, and even in the UK may want to go. So they can't just rely on the hotel, B&B and guest house space in the Glasgow and the Lowlands area of Scotland, Central Belt area of Scotland. That's just not feasible. There is not enough hotel space and guest room space available. So there's going to have to be some kind of athletes' village set aside, or a temporary athletes' village set aside. And that, well, time is ticking because the Commonwealths are due to start in 2 years' time, so they need to get those facilities up and running should they be announced. Now, we know that Singapore has ruled out doing a co-hosting bid with Malaysia, and we now know, obviously, Australia's pulled out with the state of Victoria and the city of Melbourne. Now, there's been a lot of discussion about the future of the Commonwealth Games as a sporting event, and running costs and media. Does it make enough money with the media rights, with the sponsorship, ticket sales? And this comes at a time, obviously, when public budgets and even private enterprise, there's not a lot of spare money. Not a lot of spare money, should I say, floating around in the global economy. Some countries are really struggling financially with the public purse strings, and so running and bidding for an event like this is a very expensive venture. Birmingham found out as the last hosts. The city council, which is one of the biggest, if not the biggest, local authority in Europe, has basically gone bust, and in part the running costs of the Commonwealth Games contributed to its financial struggles, although there are other issues with Birmingham Council, but the running costs were cited as an expense that they wished was less. it was a bit of an expensive venture, not only to bid for the games, but build the infrastructure, which is paying contractors. Then you've got to prepare the venues in the days and weeks leading up. Then you've got to get all the merchandise prepared, all the fan zones prepared. The athletes' village, when you sell that on, you want to make a profit on the housing infrastructure that is built, so the athletes' village, and then of course the running costs of the stadiums and facilities. If they're not being sold into private hands, they're going to be council run. So there were some cost overruns which has contributed to the financial mess that Birmingham City Council finds itself in. There are other issues at play, and we can discuss that on the other channel. Gold Coast were the most recent Australian hosts, and they got hammered in the media for their organisation and issues with the games. A lot of athletes weren't happy with some of the facilities. Gold Coast got hammered, and they didn't make a lot of money financially either. I think they made a loss at Gold Coast. Birmingham, I think actually the event itself was profitable, but the years leading up, the background running costs did, in the short to medium term, cost Birmingham a lot of money. So the actual event, what they projected, made some money, but it was everything behind the scenes didn't. So Glasgow stepping up and trying to reuse facilities that will be 12 years old by the time the Commonwealth roll around again. There's going to have to be some infrastructure spend by Glasgow, and the clock is ticking. It's only 2 years away, or just over. So they're going to have to sort out a temporary athletes' village of some nature. There's not enough hotel space and guest room space, B&B space, for example, in the Glasgow area or the southern central belt of Scotland and the Lowlands. It's not going to be the hotel space available. Even though Glasgow is a reasonable sized city, there is limited hotel space, especially if you're hosting an international sporting event. You're going to have people coming in from all over the country and all over the world, and they're going to want a place to stay. So you know, there are going to be limitations on the athletes' housing. They're going to have to figure out something in the short to medium term quickly. It's going to have to be probably temporary, and that's probably not going to go down well with athletes if this is a short-term thing, because you've got to get planning permissions, you've got to build or site the athletes' village. So there are some infrastructure projects that need to be done if Glasgow is to host the Games in 2 years' time. But the fact that Melbourne has pulled out and Singapore and Malaysia have pulled out is worrying, considering that Australia has hosted the Commonwealths before and Malaysia have hosted the Commonwealths before, and they're going, the running costs are too high, we're not going to make a profit on this, and as the time frame shrinks, you're not going to be able to build all the facilities in time or prepare all the facilities in time, and then you've got to worry about an athletes' village. So Glasgow has volunteered to host the 2026 Commonwealth Games should no other host be found, but they want the size of the event reduced. They want to reduce the sports from 13 to 10, the core sports and the core sporting disciplines reduced, and they're going to try and reuse as many facilities as possible should they have to host in 2 years' time. But there we go. Place your thoughts on the Commonwealth Games below. I felt the Glasgow Commonwealths in 2014 was quite a good event. Could it have been better? Possibly, but was it the worst? No. I think Glasgow as a host city did very, very well. But this is going to be a bit tougher for Glasgow this time round to pull off what they did in 2014. But they're stepping up. They're willing to do it. So it looks like the Commonwealth Games will have a host. Whether it's Glasgow or not, we'll wait and see. But for me, for now, thank you very much for watching. Please place your thoughts in the comments section below. I'll have some more content for you guys very, very soon.